Alahoyas, this is Valient Himself from Valient Thorr, and you're watching HeartSupport.
This is the last sound that they would ever hear. They closed their eyes so they would not see the fear.
In 1988, my father was prescribed with pancreatitis, and none of us had ever heard of that before. And what that is just your pancreas fails, and that happened what we were told at the time was because he smoked a lot and drank a lot. And even though he had stopped smoking, I think he was smoking like 2 packs a day. I think he was also abusing like about a fifth of liquor a day when he was doing it. And I think he had stopped for like 2 years. I don't think he'd had a drink since he was 34. In 88, he was 36, and his pancreas stopped working. I was a third grader, and they said he died. He didn't die, they revived him, but he had to stay in the hospital for like 2 years. I think he went in third grade, and I think the first time that he got to venture out to anything was my first 6th grade basketball game. Things shape you, like your things that happen early on shape you, and so I decided not to go down the path of abusing all that stuff. I try to live a healthier life. I watched his body deteriorate over the years from those things. He got diabetes at that time. And he became well. He was able to work again. He was able to do all kinds of different things. But every few years, like, he ended up having other things like quadruple bypass open heart surgery, and one of his eyes stopped working from the diabetes, and then he got renal kidney failure. He had his gallbladder removed, and it was every 5 years it seemed like there was something else. They couldn't find a match. However, I was recording a record in Seattle, and I was like, I'll just do it. And they said, well, you don't match. And I said, well, I'm going to try anyway, because it says you can try. I have O negative blood. That's supposed to work for everybody. So I went and tried, and they had me piss in a jug for like a week and keep it in the fridge. And I was mailing it to North Carolina from Seattle. I started working with the National Kidney Foundation to promote that I was going to do this, like dead on, and I'm not going to stop this big tour that we have. Afterwards, they say, you got this amount of time, and we planned it all out. And I gave him a kidney. It all worked out. 3 weeks later, we flew to Europe, and everything worked out. And his kidney was fine. If I had another one to grow to give somebody else, I would totally do that again. Fast forward 5 more years, and here's where I think what this is all about comes to. When you're like a kidney recipient or a liver recipient, a transplant recipient, you're susceptible to getting sick. So if you get food poison or you get anything like that, you can get really sick right away, and it can put you in the hospital. And my father got food poisoning, and it put him in ICU. He got out of the ICU and into a regular room within a matter of days. I flew to see him. Everything was cool, and I had just gotten off of literally a 9-week tour. And I went home after that, and as soon as I got home, my mom called me freaking out. It was all bad. And what had happened was they moved him into a regular room, and they were only keeping him there to make sure that his fluids were cool, and then they were going to send him home. I mean, I talked to him. I had like a conversation with him. That night, he said he was in pain, and a nurse who's like a fill-in nurse for somebody gave him a fentanyl patch, which is, I don't know if you know this stuff, I've done research since now. It's the same thing that killed Prince. It's a very strong patch that's, they don't even throw them away anymore because junkies will get into the garbage cans and use them because they're like 1,000 times more potent than heroin. It's really strong, and it's really, really powerful. So it knocked him out, and his sugar dropped, and he went into a diabetic coma. But he was so doped up from this thing that wasn't prescribed to him by a doctor that he didn't, and he flatlined, and it took him they said 3 minutes, but who knows how long it took him to bring him back. And they revived him, but they never brought his brain back, and so he died. Through that, even 3 years later, I'll find myself sitting around watching superhero shows, and I'll spontaneously just start squalling. Like, water will just jump out of my eyes. It always has something to do with these things about, your father. And so it always comes back to the superhero shows. I have collected comic books since I was little, and I think that I put on a tough persona, like I'm tough as shit. I like rock and roll, and I like badass rock and roll dudes, and I like wrestling, and I like all this stuff that I thought was like tough stuff. Obviously I like the other things, but I like to portray myself as like, you can't fuck with this, but I'm not invincible. I just like to feel tough, and I think everybody likes to feel tough and put on that coat of armor so that we don't get pierced. all the time, but I felt I felt vulnerable. I felt I guess sometimes I feel like all the things that I used to like to do, I can't do them anymore. It's really hard to bring it back sometimes, and that's okay because everybody goes through it. We all go through it. I think you have to not hold it in, because my vision of someone having anxiety or my vision of someone having depression was not me. I'm a positive person. I always look on the bright side, but that doesn't mean that I'm not susceptible to depression. And all of us are. Something will affect you and grab you in a way that makes you go, why am I feeling these feelings? I've never had them. I've never felt this way before. It makes you feel like weird, but you're not weird because everybody has them, And I started having to reach out to my buddies and tell them that I never felt like this before, and I needed somebody to talk to me about it, because it's just, when you hold it in too hard, like, it can feel like there's nothing else you can do, but there is. All you got to do is vent about it. All you got to do is talk about it, and then it goes away, and sometimes it comes back, but it only has to come out for a moment, and then you feel a lot better. Every detail is important, and if you feel like you gotta squish it in, then you might feel like it's not worth it, or it's not worth someone's time. So you gotta let it all out. So when I say superheroes and wanting to portray someone who's tough, it's not just wanting to portray someone who's tough. I think giving off toughness gives you a vibe, but the superhero part is about helping people. I always wanted to help somebody. I'm hoping this story will help people in that way, like a superhero does, because what motivates you to give someone a kidney? It's not for acclaim, it's for love, it's for helping people, it's for throwing away politics, throwing away religion, and just saying, look, we're all human, beyond the color of our skin, beyond where we were raised, beyond how we were raised. We all suffer from the same things. I rarely get to elaborate on things like this, so I hope it actually makes a difference. It really doesn't matter what your problem is. I try to have an open ear, and maybe I can point you in the right direction.